discussion analyzes one of the fundamental questions that has bemoaned humans for ages. For so many years now, this particular topic has captured the thoughts of men, and we always wonder, we always ask ourselves so many questions. Were we created by a self-existent, immutable, immaterial, omnipotent, and omniscient being? Or did we spontaneously originate over a period of millions of years from inorganic matter through mechanistic processes without any kind of supernatural intervention? Well, let me put this in a very proper perspective so that you get what I'm trying to say this afternoon. You see, there is an evolutionary model, then there is the creation model to the origin of life. Some people have told us that men came by evolution, and others have said that men came by creation. What idea is true? Let me explain summarize what the evolutionary model says. In the beginning was matter, and matter begot the amoeba, and the amoeba begot the worm. The worm begot the fish begot the amphibian. The amphibian begot the lizard. The lizard begot the lower mammal. The lower mammal begot the lemur, and the lemur begot the man. So goes the theory of evolution. And after saying it in this fashion, they conclude and tell us that then it means there's no supernatural designer. The world just came into being out of nothing. And on the other hand is the creation model. And the creation model goes like this. And I believe you might have heard it before. It says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth, and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was on the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was hovering over the face of the waters. Then God said, let there be light, and there was light. And God saw that the light, that it was good, and God divided the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. So the evening and the morning were the first day. This is the creation model. This concludes and tells us that there is a supernatural creator, a self-existent, immutable, omnipotent, omnipresent God who created all that is seen today by creating it ex nihilo. And when we say ex nihilo, what you're trying to say is that out of nothing. He created it out of nothing. And that is to explain that he spoke and it was so. All the complexity in nature came because of him. There is no middle ground in this. These are the only two options that man has. Either you choose evolution or you choose creation. Either evolution is right and creation is wrong, or creation is right and evolution is wrong. Therefore, in order for us to determine truth from error, we need to use certain rationalities. And our friends who are philosophers will tell us that we need to apply what is called the law of rationality. The law of rationality. What is the law of rationality? What we are trying to say is that you know that particular law. It goes something like this. One should accept as true only those conclusions for which there is adequate evidence. For you to accept something as true, you need to only accept where there is enough evidence. Then you can accept that yes, indeed, this particular statement is true or false. And Jesus Christ, a man who lived on this earth, who was in the form of God, came onto this earth to die for your sins and my sins. He also quoted it in this way. He said, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. Yes, this is very true. Because if creation is true, then it means that all those who have believed in evolution are not yet free. They have believed a lie all this while. And if the evolutionary theory is also true, then it means the creation, those who are creationists, myself and those who believe in the creation model, have believed in a lie. And so let us examine the truth. Before we began this seminar, as I shared flyers and told people about this seminar, a young guy asked me this very question, and I think it's of interest in this discussion. The young man said, why would you want to have this discussion? Why would you want to teach and study about evolution and creation? What is causing you to study this particular subject? And I smiled and looked at him and said, let me read a quote to you. It is an article that was written by Josephine McKinney. And this particular article was written on October 28, 2014. She said this, and she said this concerning Pope Francis, that is the head of the Catholic Church. They form majority part of what we call the Christendom in the world. And because there are a lot in the world, what they say a lot of times carries a lot of weight. And this is what Pope Francis said. And he said this when he was addressing the plenary assembly of the Pontifical Academy of Sciences at Vatican. And so this particular statement goes like this. When we read about creation in Genesis, we run the risk of imagining God was a magician. This is what the Pope said. With a magic wand, able to do everything. But that is not so. God is not a divine being or a magician, but the creator who brought everything to life. Evolution in nature is not inconsistent with the notion of creation. This is what the Pope said, Pope Francis at Vatican in 2014. And so when he says this, anybody who thinks rationally, who wants to always examine truth by the evidence that are available, you go and ask yourself, can you merge evolution and creation when they are both saying two different things? And not what the Pope said. He said concerning God that God is not a divine being. So when I read this, then I went like, then we need to examine this particular issue of creation and evolution, because it is a matter of eternal importance. You see, this statement by the Pope is false. It has no evidence supporting it, and we are going to prove that in this particular sermon. It is sad to say that many people do not know who a Christian is or what Christianity is all about. And I would like to encourage you that after watching this particular video, kindly go back, spotlight on the word I produced a material on the subject of Christianity. Who is a Christian? Go back and study it, and you realize that what you see on the television is not what we call Christianity. Again, many have been misled, like I said earlier, by what they see on TV, by what they hear on the radio stations, and especially by the articles they read on the internet. When they see so-called miracle workers, men of God, prophets, bishops, and in various denominations, when you look especially in our country here in Ghana, when you consider what a particular person like Obini and the likes, Reverend Obofo, Abraham Ben Moshe, various people, when you listen to them, you look at them and go like, seriously? Is this what you're calling Christianity? Then take it. Then take it. If this is what you're calling Christianity, then take Christianity. I don't want it. So says the atheist. And so a lot of us have falsely been misled. And this is very, very disheartening. Especially a guy like Abraham Ben Moshe. He tells us that he's of the common sense family. Because why is he of the common sense family? He's of the common sense family because the things that he sees, the type of questions that he asks men of God on the street when he engages them in debate, they are trivial questions. And whoever is a Christian who is diligent Bible student will realize that he has no argument, he has no point, he has no statement, because people have not carefully studied who a Christian is. We give such people the opportunity to say things against God and His word. Therefore, it is not fair for you or for me to judge truth by what these people do or say, but by examining what God actually gave to us. That is the evidence of His existence. When you read with me Romans chapter 1 verse 20, this is what the Bible says. For since the creation of the world, His invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even His eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Underline that word. They are without excuse. Yet, because of what these men do on the television, it causes a lot of people not to believe in God. Now let us examine the evolutionary theory. Let us diligently study this particular theory. And after studying this theory, you realize that, yes, indeed, it is not based on truth. Evolutionists are bold to make statements like anyone who chooses to believe the Bible or God has a blind faith and highly unscientific in thinking, and that believe in evolution is scientific. You see, those who believe in evolution go on and tell us that if you are a Christian and you decide to accept the creation model of origin, then you are unscientific. And they say statements like all the brilliant people, all the smart guys in the world, those who have the PhDs, the doctorate degrees, the master students, these people believe that evolution is true. And we'll be making some statement from some of these prominent scientists. And when they say these things, then it goes like, then if you accept the creation model, then you're unscientific. Then probably you don't know what physics is. You don't know what chemistry is. You don't know what biology is. You don't know the sciences. And they laugh at us. But is that actually true? A guy like Richard Dawkins, Dr. Richard Dawkins, said in his book, The Blind Watchmaker, he was bold to make this statement. And let me quote this statement to you. This is what he said. It is absolutely safe to say that if you meet somebody who claims not to believe in evolution, that person is ignorant, stupid, or insane, or wicked. And he continued to say that, but I rather not consider that. Look at this statement by Richard Dawkins, where he says that whoever accepts that the world was not created, the world did not come to be through the evolutionary model, then probably you are ignorant, you are stupid, or insane, or wicked. And he said he would rather not say that. But we need to examine truth by the evidence that are available, the law of rationality. So let's now do something. Let's ask these evolutionists, these atheists, some basic questions. Let's not go so far. Let's not fight or argue. No. Let's just ask some few questions. And let's see whether they will stand. Because the Bible tells us in 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, the verse number 21, that test all things and hold fast to that which is true. And so we are going to test this evolutionary model, whether it actually meets the test. What is the question that we are going to ask? The first question we'll be asking the evolutionists is this, concerning spontaneous generation. What do I mean by spontaneous generation? We are asking these evolutionists, those who claim that if we believe in the creation model, then probably we are unscientific. We are going to ask them about the spontaneous generation, since it is one of their fundamental beliefs. When you study evolution, one of the fundamental beliefs is that spontaneous generation actually is a fact of science, and it actually occurs. And spontaneous generation is the idea that life arose from non-life. Life came into, it just happened. For example, you see this watch on my hand. An evolutionist would go and say that this watch just came into being. It just came into being. Now, let me quote a statement by Dr. Michael Hoots. He is an auxiliary staff of Apologetic Press. He's a scientist, a nuclear researcher, and actually he works at NASA and a PhD holder in nuclear engineering from MIT. He asked this question, and I'd like to ask the same question. He says, is it scientific to teach that something happened spontaneously? That is, something just happened without any adequate cause, that we have been unable to duplicate, given our best laboratories, our smartest scientists, and virtually unlimited financial resources. This is his question. Let's see the answers that our evolutionists give. Since they are claiming that as we believe in creationism, then it means we are not scientific. Let's listen to the answers that they'll be giving us. One very good doctor called Dr. George Wald. He is a doctor at Harvard, and he said this in answering our question. Dr. George Wald is answering our question, and let's listen to his answer to our question. He says, to make an organism demands that the right substances in the right proportions and in the right arrangement. Note what he says. To make an organism demands the right substances in the right proportions and in the right arrangement. We do not think that anything more is needed, but that is a problem enough. One has only to contemplate the magnitude of this task to consider that the spontaneous generation of a living organism, note this, is impossible. Yet, here we are. As a result, I believe of spontaneous generation. some observations of what this good doctor says. He admits that spontaneous generation is not occurring today. For that, he admits. And however, he feels it must have occurred in the distant past. Wait, what evidence do we have to that spontaneous generation actually occurred? Dr. George Wald says that it is impossible for that to happen, and probably it happened some time past, and that he feels. Probably Dr. George could not give us the answer. Let's listen to another good doctor. He is called Dr. Robert Jastrow. Dr. Robert Jastrow. He said this. What did he say? According to this story, that is the evolutionary story, the spontaneous generation story, every tree, every blade, every grass, and every creature in the sea and on the land evolved out of one parent strand of a molecular matter drifting lazily in a warm pool. And he continues to say that what concrete evidence supports that remarkable theory of the origin of life? Dr. Robert Jastrow says that there is none. Wait a minute. We thought the evolutionists had told us that they have a lot of evidences to prove that actually spontaneous generation occurred. But we have two professors, or sorry to say, two doctors who are evolutionists, who are biologists, who study, and they said this in their textbooks, an introductory to biology. And we ask ourselves this question: what is this? This is what I call a leap into the dark. A leap into the dark without any good evidence. Yet the evolutionist believes in spontaneous generation. Another doctor called Dr. George G. Simpson, in the same book, has argued that spontaneous generation of life does not occur in any known case. Note that. He says that spontaneous generation does not occur in any known case. Also, another teacher or another biologist called Green and Goldberger said this in their writing. That is in their molecular insights into the living processes. They said this in 1967. They pointed out that there is no scientific evidence for the notion. Look at all these many doctors saying the same thing, that there is no proof, there is no adequate evidence for the evolutionary theory. So I like to ask, what compelling reason would cause an evolutionist and these prominent scientists to make such conclusions that the evolutionary theory does not have adequate evidences? What would compel them to say these things? I call this the evidence that is available. The evidence that we have. Like God said in Romans chapter 1 verse 20, His eternal power and Godhead. Don't think so far. Probably you hear the scientific terms and you are scared. No, take your time and let's study. The law of biogenesis simply states that all life comes from already existing life, and that of its kind. He says that all life comes already from existing life, and that of its kind. For example, for an illustration, like I was using my watch earlier on. You see this particular watch that I have on my hand. It will be very absurd to say that it just occurred or came into existence without any designer. Or the sophisticated mobile phones that you use, the one you are using to watch this particular seminar, the cars, the airplanes, the space shuttles. Imagine the technology. Yeah, you see around us, and somebody concludes and tell you that over some 14.7 billion years ago, these things just occurred randomly from mechanistic processes and use all the scientific terms to scare you. Would you actually believe that, yes, indeed, this watch came by some mechanistic process and it just occurred? Seriously. You wouldn't accept that. That is absurd to say. And that's what the law of biogenesis is saying. That before you can get complex life, for example, these things that I just used are lifeless objects. But when we consider the very small life process, these things are nowhere compared to the complexity in simple life forms. It's nowhere compared. Yet, scientists would want us to believe that they just occur. Bananas give rise to bananas. Not plantain because they look alike. No. There is nowhere that you will see that banana has given rise to a plantain because they look alike. No. Cows give rise to cows. birds give rise to birds, and so on. Regardless of the tremendous advancement in science, and especially in biology, no one has ever come close to producing life from non-life. Let me take that again. Regardless of the tremendous advancement that we've seen, many people have received Nobel Prizes for discoveries in biology, in physics, in chemistry. So many of them. Yet, nobody has ever come close to producing life from non-life. Probably you say that, who are you, Derrick Danso? Who are you to tell us that evolution did not occur because life did not occur from non-life? Take your time. I do not have any doctorate degree yet, but let me quote to you what some scientists have said. You see, biologists are applauded and cheered for doing so well in cloning. That is, carefully transferring the genetic information of one organism onto another cell without introducing many errors that will destroy the host. And this is a very big advancement in biology concerning cloning. When they pick the genes of one particular cell and they transfer it carefully onto another cell in another organism without actually causing a lot of mistakes. This is really tremendous. But stop to think about it. This transferring, this cloning is occurring from already existing life to another life, and so confirms the law of biogenesis. So you see, the law of biogenesis stands directly against the evolutionary theory. This person called Martin A. Moore said, a century of sensational discoveries in the biological sciences has taught us that life arises only from life. And he said it in his article. A century of sensational discoveries in the biological sciences has taught us that life arises only from life. So I'm not just saying this because I feel like saying it, or I'm saying this blindly. No. Research has proven that, yes indeed, for life to exist, it has to come from a life that is already existing and is adequate enough to cause that life to exist. You see, after examining the evidence that science presents to us, we can boldly conclude that evolution is unscientific and unproved. Therefore, to believe it to be true is irrational. Evolution is not scientific. Evolution is actually unscientific. It's not scientific. Therefore, don't believe it. And if you believe the evolutionary theory to be true, then I'm very sorry for you. Kindly look at the evidences that have been presented, and you realize that the evolutionary theory has no place in science. In his article, The Scientific Case for Creation, once again, Dr. Bert Thompson said, the creation model is not only plausible, it is the only one that postulates an adequate cause for the universe and life in that universe. And I agree with him. But wait a minute. Why would men accept blindly a model such as evolution for the origin of life, even when there is no adequate evidence to prove it? Why would men want to do that? Why would they want to accept evolution even when there is no evidence? There is no adequate evidence to prove it. What actually happens? You see, evolutionists always confuses atheism with true science. When I say atheism, that is the belief that God does not exist. The belief that there is no supernatural being who brought this universe into existence. You see, the moment people start accepting the idea that a supreme being created the world, that a supreme being brought all these things into existence, then they will be compelled to obey that being. They will be compelled to follow what that being says. But in order for them not to accept and obey this particular being, then they would have to accept that there is no supernatural being. And modern science, or modern atheism, and modern evolutionary theories come from one very good man. He is a nice person called Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin confirms what I'm saying. Probably you'll be wondering. He is probably the father of modern day theory of evolution. And this is his full name. He's called Charles Robert Darwin. He is the fifth of 6 children of wealthy and well-connected parents. He was. because he died so many years ago. He was an English naturalist, and let me say that he was an evolutionist. He is best known for his contributions to the science of evolution. Charles Darwin did not form his evolutionary views because he discovered scientific facts. No. That indicates that evolution had occurred, or actually is occurring. No. Charles Darwin did not get any scientific facts. He was a ministerial student in Cambridge University in the late 80s. He turned away from the Bible because he thought the Bible contained contradictions. You see, what a lot of times alleged Bible contradictions can do. In this particular seminar, on the third day, we'll be examining the question, is the Bible reliable? And we are going to answer all the questions that you might have concerning the reliability of the Bible. Charles Darwin failed to study his scriptures well. Charles Darwin failed to study well his Bible. And so he thought there were contradictions in the Bible. And so he turned away from creationism and now believed the ideas of evolution. And this is quoted from Basil Overton in 1989 in his article, Has Evolution Been Proved? And when you read the Spiritual Sword, page number 25, you find what I'm talking about. You see, regardless of this, before this seminar, I was doing a research and I discovered something. BBC had this to say concerning evolution and the story of our species. And they said this concerning Charles Darwin. This is what the BBC said. Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection made us rethink our place in the world. The idea that humans shared a common ancestor with apes was a challenge to the foundations of Western civilization. What is BBC saying? Charles Darwin's theory of natural selection caused us to rethink. But wait and ask yourself this very question. What theory are they referring to? The theory that is not based on scientific evidence? Or what theory are they referring to? You see, so now I'd like to ask you, who is actually believing blindly what he has no evidence? Is it the creationist or the evolutionist? I conclude that is the evolutionist. There is no evidence, yet he's telling us that the evolutionary theory is true. And widely, a lot of people are accepting it. And gradually, it is drifting into our country. Gradually, it is drifting into our system, where people are now challenging in the universities. You meet a guy in the physics lecture, and the guy will tell you that, in the physics lecture room, the guy will tell you that, well, I don't believe that God exists, and that when you study quantum mechanics, they tell you that this world came some 13.7 billion years ago. There was a singularity, and after that singularity, there was a Big Bang, and at the Big Bang, take your time. What was before that Big Bang? Tomorrow, if God blesses us and we are still alive, we'll be examining that topic concerning the existence of God. And the brother who will be handling this particular topic will delve deep into the teleological arguments, the ontological argument, to show that actually there is an adequate cause for this material universe that you see. You see, now we have seen that the evolutionary theory has no good evidence for us. What about the creation model? After carefully studying the first 2 chapters of the book of Genesis, one can conclude that God created all kinds of life. That is about 6,000 years ago, and that is in direct contradiction with what the evolutionists tell us concerning the age of the earth. They tell us that the earth is some billions of years, but that is not true. The evidence, they have no evidence to support this. And materials will be given out freely on our pages, on several pages, on our social media handles, so that you'll be able to verify for yourself what you are talking about concerning the age of the earth. It is not true. The evidence that they are presenting to us concerning the age of the earth, that the earth is some billions of years, that is not true. The earth is young, about some 6,000 years old. And when you examine Genesis 1 and Genesis 2 carefully, you also realize that God placed a tremendous amount of genetic information in each original kind. That is when you read Genesis chapter 1, verse 11, the Bible tells us that he told, after creating the things that he made, he said that they should give rice according to its own kind. And so God was the one who placed that tremendous amount of genetic information there. And prior to the fall of man, that is, prior to Genesis chapter 3, all life was genetically perfect as created by God. Since the fall, God's creation, including DNA, in all forms of life, has been in decay. And this is in conformity with the second law of thermodynamics. Because after the fall, everything now gradually started decaying. And because of sin, as sin entered the world. The creation model is scientific and rational, because when you look at the law of biogenesis, the life must come from already existing life. The Bible tells us that in the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. Yes, indeed. The cause for this universe must be greater than the effect. And so we see carefully that the creation model fits perfectly and is scientific in its nature. You see, on page 2 in his book, Creation Compromises, Dr. Bert Thompson notes finally that give a man a false what view of his origin, and he likewise will possess a false what view of his destiny. Origin and destiny are inseparably linked, says Dr. Bert Thompson. Origin and destiny, they are inseparably linked. God wants every man, everywhere, to come to a knowledge of the truth. He wants all men to be saved. But the choice is yours to make. Our beloved audience, the choice is yours to make. So it's either you choose between evolution or creation. God is not going to twist your hands for you to believe that yes, indeed, by force accept the fact that he created the earth and all that is in it. Or he's not going to force you that, hey, go and accept the evolutionary theory. That God is not going to do that to you. He has given us all the evidence to prove that yes, indeed, he exists. So now, it is up to you